I wanted to start off this morning with showing you a few slides. This is the Sea of Galilee. Last week we talked about that the Sea of Galilee is like a large lake. You can actually sit in the center of the lake or the Sea of Galilee and see the whole thing, north to south, east to west. This is looking south. And if you'll notice, there's actually two different ridges of hills there. I wonder if this actually, hey, look at that, that works. That's pretty cool. So if you're looking at the center screen, there's this hill that comes down in the foreground, and then there's these ones in the back that are at different angles. That is the reason that there's such a large storm that comes in. When they have a storm, it causes that tumultuousness that causes the big storms that we were talking about last week. I just wanted to point that out because I had mentioned it last week. Sea of Galilee, Magdala, Gennesaret on the left, Capernaum up top. Those are some of the towns that are mentioned quite often. Tiberias there to the left is another city that is a very popular place. That's where we stayed. But today we're going to be talking about this area right here, directly across from Magdala and down from Capernaum. But whenever the storm happened, they were leaving Capernaum and heading to here. And that's where they landed. So the importance of that is that's where we're at today. So this is the boats that we got to go out on. And if you'll notice behind the boat, that is the landscape on the shore. So there's not a lot of area between that shore and the mountain range, but there is some hill country there, obviously. And this is where they believe the events of today's Bible reading happened. They let us hike up in there. There's caves and tunnels. You can see up in here, you can see some of those caves and stuff. And those would have been like burial grounds that people would use to bury their dead. And so that was where today's events happened. And this was kind of a little bit of a storm that was rolling in the day that we were there. You can see how the color of the water changes. And it's kind of wild. It actually physically changes colors. It's weird. Okay, that's nothing but the blood. We'll get back to that one later. Okay, so I wanted to show you that because today as we're going through the scripture, we're in Luke chapter 8, by the way. And as I mentioned last week, we were talking about the storm that happened on the Sea of Galilee. Today, we're going to be talking about when they landed on the other side after that storm. So you remember last week, we were talking about the fact that the disciples, the apostles, were in the boat with Jesus. Jesus had fallen asleep in the boat. I don't know. Somebody mentioned last week that maybe he had his hood pulled down over his eyes and he was just watching the disciples to see what they would do. He really wasn't sleeping. I don't know if he was doing that or not, but I wouldn't put it past Jesus to do that, just to see what they would do. But the storm became so violent that they were afraid for their life. The boat was beginning to swamp. And because of that, they were starting to feel like, we're going to die. This is it. So they wake Jesus up. And when they wake him up, they say, "Don't you care? We're about to die. Wake up. Can you do anything to help us? Maybe you can bail some water with us. Maybe you can help us out." And Jesus says, "Oh, you of little faith." That wasn't his exact words, but he was questioning, do you really believe me? Do you believe who I am? And then he turns around and he says, "Peace, be still," or quiet. Whatever it is he said, the waters became still. The wind stopped blowing. And they became frightened because they looked at that and said, "Who is this that calms the wind, that stills the water?" They've been following him all this time. We were talking about that last week. So that's just happened. Now, can you imagine that if you had been in a situation where something like that had happened and you were challenged, where's your faith? What kind of faith do you have that you would be afraid of that? What would happen just a few moments later when another event happens that would challenge your faith. I don't remember the movie. I can't even picture in my mind what it was, but I remember this person standing up to fight something. And in the process, the people on either side of him, they begin to back up. And he's like, oh, no, come back up here, stand with me. And I think that would have been the disciples' tendency when this event happened. So let's read in Luke chapter 8. They sailed to the region of the Gerasenes, which is across the lake from Galilee. When Jesus stepped ashore, he was met by a demon-possessed man from the town. For a long time, this man had not worn clothes or lived in a house, but had lived in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell at his feet, shouting at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, don't torture me." For Jesus had commanded the evil spirit to come out of the man. Many times it had seized him, and though he was chained hand and foot and kept under guard, he had broken his chains and had been driven by the demons into the solitary places. Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "Legion," he replied, because many demons had gone into him, and they begged him repeatedly not to order them to go into the abyss. A large herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside. The demons begged Jesus to let them go into them, and he gave them permission. When the demons came out of the man, they went into the pigs, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. When those tending the pigs saw what had happened, they ran off and reported this to the town and countryside. And the people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone out, sitting at Jesus' feet, dressed and in his right mind. And they were afraid. Now they're afraid. Those who had seen it told the people how the demon-possessed man had been cured. Then all of the people of the region of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them because they were overcome by fear. So he got into the boat and left. The man from whom the demons had gone out begged to go with him, but Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return home and tell how much God has done for you." So the man went away and told all over town how much Jesus had done for him. So can you picture that? I mean, Jesus gets out of the boat and his disciples are with him, and they've just experienced this harrowing event, and Jesus has talked to them about their faith, and then they're standing there. And here comes this man charging out of the tombs, and he's naked, he's dirty, he's probably hair, beard, shabby looking, dirty, and he comes out yelling, screaming at the top of his lungs. And yeah, I would have been the one taking the steps backwards, and Jesus would have been looking at me. Come back up here. Trust me. Have faith. Now, as you picture that in your mind, imagine that you were the sheep herders or the pig herders, as it is, that are standing there and you're witnessing all of this. Now, they know this man. They've seen him before, and they probably know how to stay away from him. They probably avoid being there close to him. But they're close now, and they're seeing this happen, and they're thinking, "Oh, this stranger, this guy just stumbled into a mess. They're in trouble now." This guy has been chased out of town and has been tied, chained, and put into he wasn't chained to something. He was chained so that he couldn't fight against him. But he has broken those chains, those bindings, whatever they were, and he is now free. And it's probably not accurate, but in my mind, I see this guy with these little chains and hanging off of him, and I see this guy that is just ready to attack, right? And then he comes and he falls down in front of Jesus. And he says, don't cast us into the abyss. Us? What's he talking about? Well, Jesus knows. Because he says, they say to him, and this is their words, which is the demons that we're referring to, or the man as he is speaking. And what does he say? He says, what do you want with us, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, don't torture me. So Jesus is telling him to get out. And they know who he is. Now, we've seen something actually happen in chapter 4 where he kicks out a demon, where the man was possessed and he tells the demon to leave, and the demon leaves and the man falls to the ground unhurt. This is a little bit different than that. We read, I believe it's in James chapter 2, that if you expel the demons out of your house, and it's talking about in our hearts, if we kick the demons out and we sweep it clean, but we do not replace it with anything, eventually those demons will come back. And when they find the house empty and clean, they go and they gather their friends together and they come back and they inhabit that place. Here is a man who has many demons. Not just one or two, but when Jesus asks him his name, he says, my name is Legion, which means many. In the Roman army, a legion would be a whole army, the whole force. So some say 1,000, some say 6,000 would have been the Roman army. But whatever it is, it's a large number. It's more than I would want to face. But he's got all of these demons living in him. And these demons are controlling him. You may have seen some movies that picture this of a voice coming out of someone that's not their own. And that's the picture that is here, is these demons are speaking through this man and inhabiting him and controlling him. And they know who this man Jesus is. Now, if you were one of the disciples, or you were one of the pig farmers, or the people who are, I don't know if they wouldn't call them shepherds because that's for sheep. What would you call a pig farmer? Anyway, one of those guys, the herders, the pig herd, there you go. And those herders were out there herding that. Can you imagine if they saw this and they heard this, what would be going through their minds? They say, well, wait a minute, who's Jesus? How do they know who this guy is? He's a stranger. I've never seen him before. But these demons know who he is. Now, picturing all of that and putting it all in our minds, imagine Jesus telling him or giving him permission to go into the pigs. And when they do, instantly the pigs turn and run into the ocean, run into the sea. Not ocean, into the Sea of Galilee, and they drown. Now you're the pig farmer or the herder, and now what are you thinking? Uh-oh, there went all of the pigs that my boss told me to take care of. Now what am I going to do? And not only that, this guy controlled that, and so they look back, and here's the man that was possessed by a demon, now sitting there normally, no longer yelling, no longer screaming. But they run off right away. They head for the hills. They go back home. And when they get back home, they tell the owners of the pigs and all those who are around about this man. And so they go out to see this for themselves. And sure enough, the pigs are floating in the water. But now they find this man who was crazy, who was out of control, And now they find this man sitting there in his right mind, clothed. And they're like, is that the same guy? I just saw him, but now he's different. This isn't the same person. Can you imagine being those pig farmers, pig herders, and seeing all of this and coming back to find this man that was crazy just a little while ago is now in his right mind? And I'm thinking, wow, this guy has some power. Let's take him home. I've got some things I'd like his help with, you know. I want him to cure some people. I want him to do some things, because if he has the power to do that, what else could he do? That's my thoughts. But no, that's not their thoughts. They're afraid. Just like the disciples had been afraid in the boat. When Jesus calmed the storm and the seas and the billows stopped. And they were afraid. Who is this that can calm the seas? Jesus is doing this for the man. He's allowing this man to have the freedom away from these demons. He's freeing him from this bondage. Not just the physical bondage, but the spiritual bondage that he was under. And in that freedom, for the first time probably, this man is able to make his own decisions and do what he wants to do. And what does he want to do? Let me go with you. I want to be with you. You saved me. What would you do for somebody that had done that for you? If somebody had kicked out all of these demons and returned you to your right mind, I don't know exactly how this would work, but I have a feeling that he knew and understood what was going on this whole time the demon was possessing him, but had no power to do anything about it. Now he sees that he has the power to make his own decisions again, or maybe for the first time. And in doing this, he's saying, I can't believe this. Now, if God had restored my sight, that would have made me feel very indebted. What can I do for you? I owe you so much. Restored my hearing, restored my legs if I was paralyzed, restored my life if I had died. You know, those are all huge things. But can you imagine this demon-possessed man who was not in control of himself, and now he is? How much thankfulness, how much gratitude does he have in his heart? What would he do for Jesus? I want to go with you. I want to be one of your disciples. And he said, no. Why? Why would Jesus say no? This guy is the perfect. I mean, take him with you. Let him tell everybody about you, you know. But he says, no. They just kicked me out of this house. They just told me that I'm not welcome here. They told me to go back across the Sea of Galilee to where I came from. I need somebody here to tell about what I did. I want you to go back home. And I want you to tell them everything that God has done for you. And he does. Not only does he just tell a few people, his family or somebody close to him, no, he goes and tells the whole town about Jesus and what he's done for him. And I doubt that he stopped there. I think there's probably this story that he would go throughout the countryside telling everyone that he could about what happened to him and what God had done for him. See, many times when Jesus did miracles, he told the people, go and don't tell anyone what I did. Why would he do that here and something else in another place? I believe there's a reason why. See, in this land, this was not the land of the Jews. This was actually the land of the Gentiles. And it was a land where there probably were some scattered Jews there living there, but this was actually the home of the Gentiles. So there would have been a lot of idolatry, a lot of worldliness in that land, in that place. They need Jesus too, right? They need to know about this Jesus. So he goes and he spreads the gospel to them as well, preparing them for the rest of the message, the rest of the mystery that is to come. And but back home among the Jews, They know about the Messiah. They have heard about the Messiah all of their lives. They've been looking forward to the Messiah. And someday this guy is going to come. And when he is, he's going to deliver us from all of this bondage that we are under. And they're thinking the physical bondage of being under the Romans. But Jesus is coming to deliver them from their sins, the bondage that just like this man has experienced. But the Jews have a different picture in their mind. And so whenever Jesus comes, they want to put him on the throne, but they want to put him on the physical throne. They want to put him on the throne of Herod because they want to have a new king that will conquer the land and return it back to the Jewish rule. That's in their mind. So Jesus says, don't tell anybody to those people because he's saying, it's not my time yet. When it's my time, everyone will know. But right now, I don't want everybody to know because I need to be able to move around freely. I don't want to be, my goal is not to be on the throne of Herod. My goal is to be on the throne in your heart. And that's the difference here. So why would Luke tell this story? I can see a few different reasons. First of all, I can see that as the disciples were telling Luke, and he was recording these things, writing them down, this would definitely be a story that I would want to include in my book. So from one standpoint, I think he would probably include this story, but just because of the sheer awesomeness of it. But then there's another reason I think he probably included this story. And if you think about it, what would the message be to us, to you and me? He's saying, I want you to trust me. So Luke is saying, I want you to trust Jesus. I want you to believe in him. I want you to know what he's done for us. And just like he did this for the man who was bound up physically and inhabited by many, many demons, just like that, if he can free that man, what would keep him from freeing you? What would keep him from bringing you the freedom from the sin, from the life that we're living? And so I think Luke wants us to see a secondary picture here. Put yourself in the place of the demon-possessed man and ask yourself for just a moment, what demons do we have? What's in our heart? What's keeping us from allowing Jesus to be the Lord of our lives, to being on that throne like we were talking about? What is it that's filling the house in our heart? Those are the demons that we're dealing with, that you and I are. Now, this is different in the fact that I believe that these demons were controlling the man. The man wasn't letting those demons inhabit him. We have a choice. We have a decision. That decision is we can choose to allow Jesus to clean that house, to wipe it clean. We have a choice to allow God to bring to us a freshness, a beginning, a start over, a do-over. We have that ability by just asking him. In our counseling, we talk about strongholds, the strongholds that are in our life, because what happens is we allow things to creep in. In James chapter 1, he talks about the foothold that takes hold. When we allow that sin to creep in, it's a foothold, and then it becomes a stronghold. In James chapter 1, he talks about it as it leads to death. So we have these strongholds in our life that we've allowed Satan to have. And he can't control us, but he tempts us. He leads us. He guides us because of the lies, the deceptions, the things that he feeds us, and the temptation that he gives us. It's like fishing. You know, you put something attractive on that hook and you throw it out there and you can catch the fish because they're attracted to it. Well, Satan can do that. But it's up to us whether or not we want to take and bite on those lies, to take the bait that he's throwing out. If we have taken that bait and we've allowed him to take that ground in our heart, do you want it back? Do you want Jesus to take that back? That's what we talk about in our counseling, is that the strongholds that we've allowed, there's only one person that's big enough and strong enough to take those back. We can try. I mean, we can determine that we're going to beat this alcoholism. We are going to beat this addiction. We're going to win against that. And we can, what my wife called white knuckling it. You can just make that determination. I'm going to do this. But we fail. But God, he does have the strength. And just like he kicked the demons out of this man, he can clear our addictions, our heart that we have allowed sin to infiltrate. He can clean that all out, and he wants to. So the invitation that Jesus is giving to us through the book of Luke here is, do you want to continue allowing Satan to dwell in your heart? Do you want him to rule over your life? If you don't, you have that opportunity to change. You have that opportunity to ask God to take that ground back that you've allowed Satan to take over in your life. And I'm just going to read it in James chapter 1. I always try to quote it, but every time I do, I mess it up. So I read this in our class this morning. Hebrews, James, yeah, it was right after Hebrews. So, you guys do that whenever I'm going through, I'm trying to find something in an alphabet. I literally have to say, JKLM. I have to do that and find it. I do that with the Bible, the books of the Bible. But anyway, in James chapter 1, in verse 13, he says, "When tempted, no one should say, 'God is tempting me.' For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. But each one is tempted when by his own evil desires he is dragged away and enticed. Then after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death." That's the picture of Satan. He snags us with those desires, the desires of our own heart. Your desires are different than mine. Your temptations are different than mine. But we all have them. Every one of us have some temptation that takes over. And Satan will use that. And sometimes it's even good things out of balance. And he uses those to make us think that, man, look at me. Look how good I am. And all of a sudden pride takes us over. Whatever it is, Satan knows our weaknesses, and he tries to take those. And if we allow him that foothold, and he takes hold of us, then he begins to have a stronghold in our lives. And so I believe that is a choice that we have to make, of whether or not we want to allow him to be in that house, or if we want to. I always say that we're asking God to kick him out, because I think if I went and tried to kick him out, I would probably be like the sons of, what was that guy's name, who tried to, what was it? Siva? There's a story in the Bible about these guys that try to kick out the demons, and the demons actually end up chasing them away. And so I'm afraid that would be me. So instead, I say, God, will you take care of this problem? Because I don't want to be fighting these demons. So I put it like this: that if we want to be free of the demons, ask God. He has the power. He has the strength to do that. So this morning, that is the invitation. Do you have things that are clouding up your house? Are you allowing other things to be the Lord of your life instead of Christ? The invitation is that He wants to be the Lord of your life, but He's not going to force His way in. He wants you to ask Him. So if there's something that's keeping you from having the life that you want to have in Him, then I suggest today's a great day to start cleaning this up and starting over.